Stop playing games with your life. Most people are living in a should graveyard. I should change, I should start, I should be more. But should is a slow death. If you want to take the island, you have to burn the boats. Are you ready to turn those weak shoulds into a massive, undeniable must right here, right now? Let's go. The bridge to freedom is not a metaphor. It is a fundamental law of human psychology and achievement. Most people walk through life under the absolute delusion that freedom is the absence of structure. They think freedom is the ability to do whatever they feel like doing in the moment, to sleep in when the alarm goes off, to eat whatever is in front of them, to scroll mindlessly because it feels relaxing. But that isn't freedom. That is a life lived in reaction. If you are a slave to your impulses, if you are a slave to your moods, if you are a slave to your moods, if you are a slave to the immediate gratification of a digital world, you are the furthest thing from free. You are a prisoner to the most primitive parts of your brain. The bridge of discipline is what carries you across the gap from being a reactor to being a creator. When you build that bridge, you are essentially saying to yourself, I am the master of the ship. Think about it. Every single thing you want in your life that is of any value is on the other side of a gap. On one side, you have your current reality, your current bank account, your current physical health, your current level of fulfillment. On the other side is the vision you have for yourself. What connects those 2 points? It isn't luck. It isn't finding yourself. It's the daily, consistent, sometimes grueling construction of that bridge. Every time you do the thing you know you need to do, especially when you don't feel like doing it, you are laying another brick, you are reinforcing the cables, you are making the path more stable. Discipline provides the structure that allows your spirit to actually soar. If you have no discipline in your finances, you are never free from the stress of debt. If you have no discipline in your body, you are never free from the limitations of low energy or disease. But the second you take command, the second you decide that your word to yourself is law, that is when you break the chains. Discipline doesn't hold you back. It pushes you forward. It is the vehicle that drives you past the crowds of people who are waiting for a handout or a lucky break. It creates a space where you are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances because you have developed an internal strength that is unshakable. You start to realize that the more no's you say to the trivial distractions, the more yes you're saying to your ultimate destiny. That bridge is the only way out of the mediocre and into the extraordinary. The concept of standards versus goals is the invisible force that determines the quality of your entire existence. Most people approach their lives with a list of goals. They want to make more money. They want a better relationship. They want a body that looks like it belongs on a magazine cover. But here is the cold, hard truth. You do not get your goals, you get your standards. A goal is something you would like to have. It's a wish, a dream, a should, but a standard is what you settle for. Your life is a perfect reflection of your ritualized standards. If you look at your bank account, your fitness level, or the environment you live in, you aren't looking at your potential. You are looking at what you have decided is okay for you to tolerate. Most people live in a state of constant negotiation with their excellence. They hit the snooze button because their standard is rest over results. Over results, they eat processed junk because their standard is convenience over vitality. They accept mediocrity in their careers because their standard is security over growth. But the moment you decide that you will no longer tolerate anything less than your absolute best, your entire world begins to shift. Discipline is the mechanism that maintains those standards when the initial excitement of a goal fades away. When you raise your standards, you change your identity. You stop being a person who is trying to lose weight and you become a person who is trying to lose weight, and you become a person who values health above all else. You stop being someone who wants to be successful and you become a person who executes with precision because that is who you are. This shift from I want to I am is where the real power lies. Think about it. There are things in your life right now that you would never allow to happen. You have a floor that you won't drop below. For some, that floor is never being late to a meeting. For others, it's never missing a workout. That floor is your standard. If you want a different life, you have to move the floor. You have to raise the baseline of what is acceptable for you. Discipline is not a burden when it is fueled by a high standard. It becomes a point of pride. It becomes the way you honor yourself. When you hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else could possibly expect of you, you stop needing external validation. You stop looking for a pat on the back because your internal compass is set to greatness. You realize that your life is not defined by the big, flashy moments, but by the microscopic disciplines you maintain every single day because you simply refuse to be ordinary. When you raise the standard, the results fall automatically because you become the kind of person who produces them as a matter of course. Every single one of us is forced to make a choice every single day of our lives, and that choice is between two very different types of pain. You cannot avoid pain. It is a fundamental part of the human experience. If you try to hide from it, it will find you. If you try to numb it, it will grow in the shadows. So the question isn't whether you will suffer, but rather, what kind of suffering are you willing to trade for your future? On one side, you have the pain of discipline. This is the pain of the early morning workout when your body is screaming for another hour of sleep. It's the pain of saying no to the junk food, the pain of saying down to do the deep work when your brain wants the cheap dopamine of social media, and the pain of holding yourself accountable when it would be so much easier to point the finger at someone else. But here's the secret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. It is sharp, it is immediate, but it is transformative. It is the friction that creates the diamond. It is the resistance that builds the muscle. It is a temporary discomfort that buys you a lifetime of pride, strength, and capability. When you lean into the pain of discipline, you are investing in yourself. You are paying the price of admission to the life you were born to live. On the other side of the equation lies the pain of regret. And let me tell you, that pain weighs tons. The pain of regret doesn't show up today, it waits. It waits until you are older, until the windows of opportunity have slammed shut, until you are forced to look in the mirror and realize that you traded your ultimate potential for a moment of comfort. Regret is the heavy, suffocating realization that you could have been more, done more, and given more, but you chose the path of least resistance. It is the ghost of the person you could have become, haunting the person you settled for. While the pain of discipline ends with a sense of accomplishment, the pain of regret never ends. It only compounds. It turns into bitterness. It turns into bitterness. It turns into a slow erosion of the soul. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid the ounces of discipline, only to end up being crushed by the tons of regret. You have to decide right now which burden you are going to carry. Are you going to take the short-term hit to your ego and your comfort to build a legacy? Or are you going to take the easy way out today and pay for it with your spirit tomorrow? Discipline is the only insurance policy against a life of regret. It is the conscious decision to endure the temporary fire of growth so that you don't have to live in the freezing cold of I should have. You must choose your struggle because the struggle is coming regardless, but only one of them leads to a life of true power and fulfillment. The transition from should to must is the precise moment where a dream stops being a fantasy and starts becoming your reality. We live in a world of professional shooters, people who walk around saying they should make more money, they should be in better shape, they should be a better leader, they should start that charity. But let me tell you something about should. A should is a maybe, a should is a someday. A should is a back door you've left wide open so you can crawl out the second things get difficult or uncomfortable. When you say you should do something, you are giving yourself permission to fail. You are telling your brain that it's optional. And your brain, being the survival mechanism that it is, will always choose the path of least resistance if you give it the choice. But when something becomes a must, everything changes. Think about the things in your life that are non-negotiable. You must find a way to pay your rent. You must find a way to feed your children. You don't try to do those things, you find a way or you make one. That is the power of a must. When your back is against the wall and your identity is on the line, you discover a level of resourcefulness and drive that you didn't even know existed. Turning your discipline into a must means you stop negotiating with your excuses. You kill the shoulds and you burn the boats. You decide that there is no other option but to follow through. This is the psychology of the top 1%. They aren't more talented than you. They just have a higher level of necessity. They have decided that their growth, their contribution, and their discipline are as vital to them as the air they breathe. When it's a must, you don't check your mood to see if you feel like doing it. You don't check the weather. You don't check your bank account, you just execute. You move with a sense of urgency because you realize that your time on this planet is limited, and every second you spend in should is a second you are stealing from the person you are meant to be. This is how you create a breakthrough. You take a stand and you say, this is who I am, and this is what I do. No matter what, you raise your level of necessity until your discipline is no longer an effort, but a fundamental part of your DNA. When you raw must is bigger than your butt, that is when you become unstoppable. You don't need a pep talk when you have a must. You don't need a reminder when you have a must. You have an internal fire that burns through every obstacle, every setback, and every doubt because you have committed your soul to the result.